Hi, guys, it's Jill, and I'm back to start our very first actual lesson in Sizzle Kids, Course One, Pillar One. Um, as you can see right here, this is me with one of my sons, Tyler. He's currently 10, and he has been super helpful in helping me learn all the things that I am eventually here going to teach you guys. So that's us, and we will be getting started in this lesson by talking about what is big food, what is fast food, and what is junk food. So I want to start this lesson where a lot of people already are, which is we know kind of what fast food is, we know what junk food is. Kids are told all the time, don't eat that, it's junk food. And fast food is not good for you. And all of these different types of things. And some of that's true, some of it's half true, some of it's not true at all. So I wanted to go over what these things are, start at the very beginning so that kids, you can understand what these things are. So, first of all, big food. We've heard a lot about this in the news lately. We've heard a lot about, big food being owned by all of the food companies being owned by 10 companies or a few companies. And that's all true. Um, what big food really is that it is mass produced food. So it takes agriculture, it takes things that grow and processes them into enough food to feed millions and millions of people around the world. So we have these modern factories that use, top of the line technology to process all the corn that's grown, all the soybeans that are grown, all the rice that's grown, all of these things, all the meat that is raised into food products for the millions and millions of people in the world that need to eat. So, just like everything, there's pros and cons to big food, to fast food, and to junk food. And I want to go over what those all are. So, the pros to big food and food coming from big factories and being processed in big factories is that it's able to feed millions of people. Um, when you can process, hundreds of thousands of pounds of grain at one time into bread, you're able to make many, many more loaves of bread and feed many more people. So that's a good thing. Um, these big factories, they can lower the cost of mass producing these things. It's going to cost me sitting at home making, 10 loaves of bread a day a lot more than it is for a big factory to make, hundreds of thousands of loaves of bread and sell them. So the cost to the consumer, to you, when you buy these products out of the grocery store is going to be less. Um, and also the quality is going to be standardized, meaning that the if you get a loaf of bread one day from a certain company, from a certain factory, it's going to be very similar to the next time you go next week to buy a loaf of bread as well. So you can standardize the quality using some of this automation and some of these machines that you see here in this picture. You see what a big grain processing machine looks like, and you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. Some of the cons of big food are, I think, pretty well known at this point, is that a lot of times in order to mass produce food like this, you sacrifice freshness and nutrients. Sometimes the nutrients get stripped out in the processing factories, and sometimes the food is there for a long time getting processed, so the freshness is gone. Um, Preservatives are added often, fillers are added, chemicals are added. The food gets less and less um, it gets less and less in its whole form and more in a processed form. We're hearing a lot these days about processed foods and about how they're not as good for you as whole foods, and that is true. The other con to this is that to big food is that it pushes small family ranches and farms out of the market because they just can't compete. Like we went over, the costs are much lower to produce um, in mass and to produce these large quantities of food than it is for a small farm to produce. So the prices are higher, and a lot of people can't afford the prices at small farms or farmers markets or things like that. So there are good things to big food and there are bad things to big food, and I just want you guys to understand what both are. For fast food, I think everybody knows what fast food is, right? It's what we get from the drive-throughs, from the drive-through restaurants. It's pre-made. It's all the same across different locations. Like you can get the same type of hamburger at McDonald's in Texas as you can get in, Michigan. It's all going to be relatively the same. It's all pretty cheap usually because they are doing it in bulk. All of the ingredients are sent usually to the stores. The meat is frozen and sent. The potatoes are frozen and sent to the stores. Not all, not all. There are some restaurants, some fast food restaurants that have popped up in the last decade or so that or 2 decades, I would say, that are quite healthy and that are good choices. If you need to eat fast food, if you need to use fast food while you're out and about, which I do. We all kind of know what fast food is. One of the great things about fast food is it's convenient, it's fast. I've been out often with my kids and we just need to pick up something to eat real quick. It's cheap, it doesn't break the bank. It's not like sitting down at a restaurant where you can spend, 50, $100 on a family meal. And to be honest, it's pretty good. It's pretty tasty. There are reasons for that. If you look in the cons section over here, one of the reasons is that it's often high in sugar and high in fat and high in salt, and that makes it yummy. Um, it's often filled with additives and fillers and preservatives and things like this. And sometimes the ingredients are much less quality than in fresh food. So pros: fast, convenient, easy, cheap, delicious. Cons: low quality usually. Not always. There are lots of restaurants that have popped up that are high quality. So that's good. Um, Junk food. We all know what junk food is, and this was kind of the main reason I wanted to include this little lesson in here at the beginning because a lot of kids hear all the time like, no, you can't have that. It's junk food. But I know that kids don't necessarily know what that means when they're 5, 6 years old. They're looking at their beautiful blue frosted cupcake at their birthday, and someone says, oh, no, 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 that's junk food. They don't know what that means. And so here, I just want to start by giving them a good idea about what junk food is. So it commonly means that it just doesn't have very many nutrients in it, that a lot of times junk food has been stripped through processing of the food from a natural state, like a natural potato, like we have here with potato chips or these French fries. These both of these items come from potatoes, which are very, very good for you, very healthy, very whole foods. Um, but once you process them and fry them, they're stripped of a lot of their nutrients and their vitamins. So there's there's that aspect that can turn a healthy whole food into a junk food. Again, like a lot of the foods that you'll find at fast food restaurants, junk food's also high in sugar and salt and fat and other ingredients that are unhealthy, like seed oils. And you're hearing a lot about that and things like that. So, for example, like these donuts, they're fried in oil. I can't say exactly what kind of oil every kind of donut is fried in, but usually a lower quality oil, I would say. Um, it doesn't make you feel great. Junk food is usually going to make you feel tired, and it takes a lot of energy for your body to process this stuff. A lot of it's not natural, and your body has to work overtime. So it's going to make you feel not great a lot of times. So, again, we have our pros and cons of junk food. The pros of junk food is really not that many, except for that it usually tastes really good. I mean, donuts are delicious, and onion rings are delicious and French fries are delicious. But, there's not a whole bunch of positives about junk food other than the way that it tastes. The cons are obvious also. It's filled with chemicals. A lot of times it's high in sugar, high in fat, high in salt, and filled with preservatives. It doesn't fill you up or leave you satisfied usually. It's so good, but as you've noticed, if you've ever had a donut and then 10 minutes later you want more. It we learn about all these things in pillar 2 of Sizzle Kids and how food acts in your body and how it makes you feel. But a lot of times, eating junk food will make you feel won't fill you up and will make you feel hungry. If you've ever had potato chips right out of the bag, you can eat the whole bag and you're hungry 30 minutes later. So, anyways, just a little bit of an overview of big food, of junk food, and of fast food. On my website, sizzlekids.com, there are separate lessons for each of these topics, and they go into a lot more detail on each one. So, if you're interested in that, head over there and you can show your kids a ton more pictures of everything, a lot of comparisons between what is healthy fast food, for example, and what is unhealthy fast food. And it just is what it is. You can get beautiful salads at drive-through restaurants now. You can get beautiful, even hamburgers and rice bowls and all kinds of things now. So fast food isn't all bad. There are good and bad parts of what you can find to eat and to nourish yourself at fast food restaurants. Junk food is junk food. It is what it is. We talk about kind of what's in it and the additives and the fillers. And big food, there's an awesome graphic on my website that shows kids visually how few companies own almost all the brands in the world. So there's like 10 companies that I go over in a summary type of manner in on the website that explains to kids what big food is and how very few companies control all the brands. So they're all kind of doing the same thing in terms of mass producing and trying to get the product out for as cheap as possible, for the consumer, and to make as much money as they can, which is fair. That's what the free market is all about. However, there are sacrifices to the freshness and the healthiness of the food in some of those instances. So head on over to sizzlekids.com to go into more depth in any of these three areas, and I will see you in the next lesson.